Committee colleagues, the gentleman from New York, Mr. Engel.
Gentleman is recognized for as much time as he may consume.
I thank the gentleman for yielding to me. And, Mr. Speaker, I stand today in strong support of my legislation, the Truth in Caller ID Act. But before I begin, I want to first thank my friend and the lead Republican and the lead Republican on the Energy and Commerce Committee, Ranking Member Joe Barton. I also want to thank the Chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, Henry Waxman, as well as his staff, for being so accommodating in getting this bill to the floor today. And I want to thank my friend Mr. Boucher, who has helped in bringing this bill to the floor, and my friend and classmate, Mr. Stearns, who quite correctly said this is about as bipartisan a piece of legislation as you can get. This legislation has been developed in an extremely bipartisan manner, and I want to thank and commend everybody who worked on it. I introduced this bill, Mr. Speaker, because we need an immediate change in our laws to help prevent identity theft, to crack down on fraudulent phone calls, and to protect legitimate uses of caller ID technology. I first found out about this just simply by reading an article. And when I realized that this is actually something that could be done, I was flabbergasted. I went over to Mr. Barton, who at the time was the chair of the full committee, and I said, Joe, something really needs to be done about this, and would you work with me on it? And he said he would, and he agreed, and everybody agrees. And the House has passed this bill time and time again, and we hope we can get it passed in both houses and get it signed. Last year, the facts are stark. Over 6,000 people were victimized by credit card fraud and identity theft. Criminals stole over $15 million from banks and ruined the credit of thousands of victims. They were able to perpetrate this fraud, in some instances, by using caller ID spoofing. This disturbing fact about spoofing is not just that it's legal, but how easy it is to carry out. Criminals use a tool called a spoof card to change their outgoing caller ID and even to disguise their voices. Now, if you see a caller ID and you see it has a phone number, most people think that it's ironclad, that that's the actual phone number that's calling them, when in truth it's not. This technology even allows people to disguise their voice in order to trick banks into giving them access to their victims' accounts. So a man can do that and have his voice changed into a woman's voice, and vice versa. So it's absolutely deceptive, absolutely scary and dangerous, and this tool is available to anyone with access to a web browser. So it's just ridiculous. The technology has gotten so far ahead of us, we need to have these kinds of laws to simply catch up. Now, no one can dispute that this legislation is necessary. Last year, a person in New York called a pregnant woman who she viewed as a romantic rival, spoofing the phone number of the woman's pharmacist. She tricked the woman into taking a drug used to cause an abortion. I used it because it's one of the horrible examples. And there are many, many more horrible examples of how this is used. And just think about it. Someone could be tricked into giving up personal medical information. Someone could be tricked to giving up banking information. If someone hears that it's their doctor calling, they take a look at the number and they see it's their doctor's number, they would give out personal information, credit card information, even Social Security identification. So caller ID fraud has even been used to prank call the constituents of a member of this body with the caller ID readout saying it came from that member's office. Just imagine if people committed this fraud in the days leading up to a close election. You can call and you can say you're from one candidate's camp when you're really from the other candidate's camp. And when someone looks down at the phone number, they see it's from candidate A and they think it's legitimate, and it's really from candidate B. So imagine what kind of trouble can happen, what kind of mischief can be done. So this really, again, needs to be curtailed. And so, as everyone has said, in response to this problem, Mr. Barton and I have introduced the Truth in Caller ID Act, and simply this bill outlaws the deceptive use of caller ID spoofing technology if the intention of the caller is to deceive and harm the recipient of the call. And let me say, we developed that intention through hearings we had in the Energy and Commerce Committee, because we want it to be legitimate. There are legitimate times where a number may have to be scrambled. We certainly do it here on Capitol Hill to protect members and others and staff from having personal phone numbers being given out or private phone numbers being given out. So there's no intent to do that. That's why we say it outlaws the deceptive use of caller ID spoofing technology if the intention of the caller is to deceive and harm the recipient of the call. And again, through the hearings we've had, we've refined this bill, and that's why it has such strong bipartisan support. And let me say, this bill does not change the rules for legitimate uses of the technology. For example, a domestic abuse shelter will still be able to change their number on caller ID to protect the occupants of the shelter. And I also gave the example about what we do here in Congress. So I'm pleased that this bill passed the House in the 109th and 110th Congresses, and I look forward to its passage again today. I strongly urge my colleagues to support the Truth in Caller ID Act and outlaw this type of fraud once and for all. And I yield back the balance of my time.